The idea that we judge anybody based on the current academic system, where we read out of a textbook, we answer some questions, we study those questions, take a test, and how we do on that test determines and predicts who we are as people. And so from a very young age, we begin grading students. You're an A grade, you're a B grade, you're a C grade. It's like cattle going through the meat market saying, oh, there's an A grade steer and there's a B grade steer. It's emotionally barbaric, I believe, to do this to children. Not every student is a scholar, and not every scholar is a thinker. And we have to allow for diversity. And with our children, we have this beautiful opportunity in homeschooling to teach to the individual. Begin growth hacking their education. Look for the subjects that piques their interest. Look for the things that they do and do well, that you can feed that a little bit more and keep that level of learning going. We need to accept in life that there are people who are better at things than we are. And so we want to teach our kids to celebrate the success of others, even when it begins to feel a little bit, that shows that I'm not as good at that. Hey everyone, welcome to Teaching Tips Thursday. Hope you're having a fantastic day. So, I'm in the app today, just the app. I had to choose one or the other, and I wanted to go into the app. And so, unfortunately, I am quarantined. Brittany, who is normally with me, she has COVID. And so, because her and I did a Facebook Live together, I guess we did some Zoom calls together and rode to work together, and that I had the most exposure in the family, so I am the only one in the family right now quarantined. But as long as I am, I wanted to be able to do a teaching tips. So let's see. One of the questions that I got was, somebody made the suggestion, Caitlin Morris actually made the suggestion, that what do I do with a student when a younger student is doing better than an older student and beginning to excel above the older student? And I think that that's a really good question. I think it's a really good opportunity for us as parents to kind of dissect this a little bit and talk about it. So for anyone who's wondering, so far, Brittany's doing good. So she's the typical not feeling well, but she's doing well as far as that goes. So I hope I don't get it too. So, okay. So what do you do when you have a younger student who's actually doing better in school than an older student, and it's beginning to bother the older student? How can we deal with this? Well, I think number one that we have to look at is the idea that we judge anybody based on the current academic system, where we read out of a textbook, we answer some questions, we study those questions, take a test, and how we do on that test determines and predicts who we are as people. And so from a very young age, we begin grading students. You're an A grade, you're a B grade, you're a C grade. It's like cattle going through the meat market saying, oh, there's an A grade steer and there's a B grade steer. It's emotionally barbaric, I believe, to do this to children. It's one skill set that a person will have, right? For most of their schooling, it's this one concept of, I'm going to just see how well I can read, answer a question, study that question, take the test, and move on. And for some of us I could study and take a test. I may forget it all next week, but I can cram and pass a test, no problem. I may get an A on that test, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I understood the material or actually learned anything. So the method that we're using to grade students, and then we take this grading and we apply it to the rest of their life. We say, well, you know what? If you were an A student, you're going to be able to get into the best colleges. that continues to promote this. And if maybe you didn't, maybe you can make it into a community college or maybe even a trade school as long as you get a diploma and you are able to graduate. And I think that this concept is a little bit barbaric. And so that's my first point about this, is that not every student is a scholar and not every scholar is a thinker. And we have to allow for diversity. And with our children, we have this beautiful opportunity in homeschooling to teach to the individual and to allow opportunity for our students to grow in their own niches. So let me shift the context a little bit to us as parents. Let's say, okay, the new standard that we judge everybody by is housekeeping. And so, we go and take courses in how well your kitchen looks. Are you able to keep the kitchen clean, the cupboards clean, the floors swept, mopped, all of that? The dishes are done. So that's one class. What about the floors and the dusting? That's another class. Or what about the meals that we do? So maybe we add a little depth to it. How well presented are the meals that we do for our families? What about decorating, right? We take a course in decorating, we decorate our houses. How well is our courses decorated? And so the teacher's pet A+ student is the Martha Stewarts and the Joanna Gaines, and they have these amazing homes, and at least for a moment for the test, right? That tells how well they are at housekeeping and meal planning and everything else. And let's say we throw a couple of electives in. Let's say we throw in our personal appearance, and maybe we throw in our children's appearance, right? So some of you may feel that this is the standard that you actually are judged on. But not everybody enjoys doing dishes. It's something that we do because we have to maintain our households, but it's not something everybody enjoys. There are people who enjoy dishes. There are people who enjoy decorating and people who enjoy, having everything very neat and tidy and in its place. And they enjoy that. But then there's another group of people that they do what they have to do to get by, but they don't necessarily enjoy it. Well, if you can imagine that, maybe it's not just this, maybe it's other parts of your life. Auto mechanics. What if you were judged by how well you maintained your automobile? Well, the easy low-hanging fruit is, can you keep it clean? Is your automobile clean today? That's the standard. If it is very clean, nothing on the floor, nothing in the seats, you can't find any nuggets down tucked behind, and the car seat isn't coated in cereals and juice. If your car is pristine, you have an A. And then let's complicate it as we begin going through this. So you have an A, then we change oil, so we have an oil changing class, and how well you change oil and can remember to do that without any spilling, then we give you A's. See, we can throw all these things in, and so maybe you like changing oil, and maybe you like doing auto mechanics and those type of things, and so you're an A student. And for those of you who don't like it and don't do as well, you know what? You're not going to succeed in life, because we've determined that the way you succeed in life is we teach you how to do these things. And if you can't do them, or you have no interest in doing them, or you're just not skilled at it, then you must be moved down the line. So going back to the housekeeping, if the kitchen, if everything's not pristine, picked off the floor, you can't eat off the floor, eat off the counters, if that's not your kitchen, are you an A student? Are you a B student? Are you a C student? And the reason that I would give this illustration is because sometimes we look at our children and we're like, well, they're not enjoying their schoolwork. And so in our minds, because we've been trained to think in this way of casting down A, B, C, D, E, F. I guess there is no E, but you know what I'm saying. In our mind, we automatically begin ranking the student. We wouldn't want that in our own life. We wouldn't want our husband to say, you're a C wife. I mean, I'm sorry, there are A wives who keep their kitchens clean and or husbands that keep their kitchens clean and there's The dishes, I wish they were done more often and regular. There shouldn't be any dishes in the sink at any time. That would be the A housekeeper. If you're not there, well, then chances are maybe we should be bumping you down. Maybe you're a D housekeeper. What about floors? I think sometimes with a large family like ours, how hard it is to keep up the house, to keep up the dishes, to keep up the kitchen. And I wouldn't say that any of us really enjoys dishes. It's a necessary evil to keep the dishes done, keeping the kitchen cleaned, keeping the house cleaned, picking up after ourselves, doing laundry. All of these things are necessary evils, but there isn't anyone really in this house that says, wow, this is what makes our heart sing. Doesn't mean we're not okay at it or good at it, but we all have different levels. And if we can apply that same logic back to the school system, to the education of our children, it may help us to have just a little bit of mercy with our students who aren't that into school. It may not be their thing. Now, I would differentiate school from learning because I think it's wired into a lot of us. We enjoy learning. Give a student something they're interested in, and they love to learn. In fact, they'll surprise you. Minecraft. Some students will, if they sit down to play a video game, their ability to adapt and pick things up and play and think logically and maneuver through things can be amazing, right? Because they have an interest in it. But then set them down in front of math. Now, math doesn't always have the rewards of a video game, so I've talked about that in the past, and I want to be careful to differentiate that. But there can be a difference there. So, I think we if we have some mercy and some grace when it comes to our students in school, and then the other thing that I would say is school is just something we have to do. It's built into our culture. It's mandated. It's what we have to do. I think we can work as parents to make things more interesting. I think we can set it up so that we can tailor the education a little bit more to the needs of the student instead of forcing them to do something that's boring and dry for them. You have the opportunity as in homeschooling to adjust that and adapt it. But when it comes to the actual practice of school, it's something we have to do, and it's good that we do. So, but I would encourage you a couple of things. As you begin building the academic portfolio of your student, the student who's struggling in school, look for ways, begin growth hacking their education. Look for the subjects that piques their interest. Look for the things that they do and do well, that you can feed that a little bit more and keep that level of learning going. For one of my sons, he was just good in mechanics. He could do the schoolwork, and he did it. He did it because it was a necessary evil, but what he loved to do was to tinker with engines and machines. And so from a very young age, he and I would travel all over Western New York and buy up snowblowers and lawnmowers and chainsaws and weed whackers, and he'd go negotiate. I couldn't believe the way he would negotiate with people. He'd call them, we'd find them on Craigslist. He'd call them. He'd ask them if they would take a certain amount. We'd get there. He'd look at it. He'd negotiate and tinker down. He'd bring it home, completely make it over, and then he'd put it out for sale, and he started turning profit on it. And it was a great experience. And now in his career, he's in a mechanical career that is using his hands and the skills that he learned. He also has advanced very quickly because he can communicate, negotiate, and talk. And he didn't enjoy the school aspect at all, but he really enjoyed that hands-on aspect. And so we were able to give him what he needed to have academically, but also build on that and be creative with it. And so I would, in the realm of academics, I would encourage you to think about the world we live in today. It used to be I needed to be very general in my education. I didn't have cell phones, so I couldn't necessarily begin, I had to have some level that I carried with me all the time. Today we moved more towards niches where it's okay if all you sell is neckties, because in the world there's a certain population that wear neckties. And so I can actually build an entire business of neckties and pocket scarves. and be the best in the world at doing that. And so we have the ability to be a little bit more niche and focus on our strengths. I had a really good opportunity. The company I was working for paid for me to finish my education. Don't think less of me because of this story. They paid for me to finish. And so it was an executive program that I got into because I went back to school after a few years of being out of it, and I had to take this class. In order to get my degree, I had to have a statistics class, and I just knew that math was not my deal. It's just not. And I have strengths, and Kristen could do statistics. Kristen could do school. She was very academically minded and excelled at that. And so, and I remember that because I'm going to circle back to Kristen. Kristen is my wife. She is also the curriculum development editor at Masterbooks and also the author of Language Lessons for a Living Education. So remember her because I'm going to come back to her. But anyways, so she's good at that. I'm not. So last class, the last thing I got to do, the only statistics class they had was advanced statistics. I had skirted through all of my college without having to really. I could do accounting. I did business math. I could get some math loosely, but I had to have the statistics in order to get my degree. And we started the class, and I just knew that this was not going to work. And it was one of these classes or schools where you go for like every fifth week or sixth week, you would go to a residency and you would spend the whole weekend going to classes. And it was with all the executives from the area from different organizations, which at the time was like Xerox and Kodak and Rich Foods and different large organizations in the Buffalo area. And so I'm there with all these mid-level managers and those, and I have to have this course. And my degree was international marketing, and I didn't even know how I was going to do it. So I went to the professor, and I explained to him that as a professional, I really wouldn't even understand. Like, even if I understood some of the basics of statistics, I wouldn't necessarily understand how to apply that to my business. And so if that were me, what I would do would be to evaluate different statisticians, bring them into my organization, have them prepare the reports, and then from the reports they were creating, I would be able to deduct what I needed to do to grow my business. And so I said, is there any way that I could present to you why this course is useful, just not in the style that you're teaching it? And so he agreed. And so I did. I wrote a very good paper and sold why I don't need to take statistics. And I got an A in the course. Now, some people are bitter because they had to take statistics and I didn't. But I used my strength, which is marketing. And see, and think about it. Like, for me as a marketer, how much energy do I really want to spend studying statistics? There's benefit to it, and I want to understand the basics of what I'm looking at. But what I'm growing in, what I do well, is to do marketing. And so I would do better to study behavioral management. I do better to study neuromarketing and tribal marketing and branding and those things which help me do what I do, and then work cooperatively with a team of people who are good at accounting and people who are good at different things like that. And so let's see, I'm just going to check because I want to make sure. Okay. Just want to make sure everybody's okay. Okay. And so we can focus a little more on the niches, knowing that we don't always have to spend a lot of time trying to develop our weaknesses. Back to the dishes and those things. There have been times when we were growing businesses and serving in ministry and whatnot, where we would actually hire somebody to help us keep house, because they did that well, and it just helped bring things together, right? And so I'll leave it at that. Hopefully that helps a little bit and you can understand it. The last thing I want to say about this, and I think this is so important, and so for the student who's struggling because another student is beginning to leapfrog them, maybe a younger brother, and as a parent, we can have a tendency to try to hold the one student back or tell the other student, well, you're better in this, he's not that good in this, that type of thing. And what I would encourage very strongly for all of us as parents is not to create little narcissists. Narcissism is a very fragile little ego that needs to be fed all the time. And what happens is my pride, when somebody else starts to do better, my sin nature begins to come out. I begin to feel envy. My pride gets pricked. My ego is affected. And so if I'm not careful and I don't develop emotional health, I start looking for ways to sabotage their success rather than celebrating their success. We need to accept in life that there are people who are better at things than we are. Michael Jordan will always be a better basketball player than Randy Pratt. I've accepted that. I've come to terms with that. There's no question about it. To ask him to handicap his game because he has skills, ability, and is trained and done well so that I don't feel as bad would be taking away from his full potential. And so we want to teach our kids to celebrate the success of others, even when it begins to feel a little bit, that shows that I'm not as good at that. And I don't need to even demean the other person. I don't need to look for their weaknesses, because again, that's very narcissistic to say, well, they're not good at sports and you're good at sports. We don't need to do that. We can celebrate the fact that they're good at math. Period. He's good at math. We applaud that. We're glad he's good at math. And then when that student is doing well at something, we can celebrate what they're good at. When I was young, Kristen and I went to a private school, and it was an ACE school, which I talked about last week. And when they did the testing, I ended up coming from public school. I was in 8th grade when I came into the school. And I had to go back to like 5th and 6th grade in some of the like language and math. So understand, I've got the context now of a lifetime, half a lifetime, 30, 40 years. Okay. So Kristen and I dated, she was 13, I was 14, I'm now 51 and she's 50. So that's how much time we can evaluate this from. So she came into the school, cute little smart thing. She did really well on her test. She actually went up a grade. I went down 3 grades. And it was humiliating for me because I didn't, who when you're 13 years old or 14 years old wants to be doing 5th and 6th grade work? Well, the girl that you want to impress is exceedingly above everybody else. And so I would begin to dig on her and try to get her to hide her talents so that it didn't make me feel as bad. And I wouldn't give her credit for who she was and what the Lord had gifted her with. Okay, so she was excelling in that. She handicapped herself because of my weaknesses emotionally and my insecurities and my narcissism. Okay, now fast forward through life. So in life, my successes, my skills and abilities have begun to unfold. And so it's very easy to see what I excel at and what I'm good at. I'm good at selling. I'm good at getting attention and selling product. That's what I'm good at. I see the big picture and I can do it. Tell me I can't sell something and I will sell it. I excel at being the underdog as well. So we fast forward, and now Kristen writes a language curriculum. And I think it's brilliant. I think the holistic nature of language lessons for a living education, the way she wrote it, And she did it she did 3 levels. They were all like 400 to 600 pages. 3 levels a year, 2 years, and 18 months of that, she was going through breast cancer treatments, radiation, and chemo. I mean, what she accomplished was amazing. The difference at this age is I was able to celebrate her intelligence and her success rather than feeling that it shined a light on my incompetency, because I have my own competencies. And so I have emotional health in those areas. And so I'm not threatened now because she's excellent at something. And so that's what I want us to look at with our kids. Like, how does this play out when they're 20, when they're 30s? How does this play out with their spouses and their coworkers? They're going to hire your students for jobs that they're good at. They're going to hire them for publicity. They're going to hire them for marketing, accounting. They're going to hire them for trades, things that they're good at. And then they're going to hire other people for things that they're good at. They may hire your student to be a mechanic, and then they may hire somebody else to do the books. And if your bookkeeper is good and you're the business owner, you will appreciate that rather than hating the fact that they're good at bookkeeping and you're good at being a mechanic. Does that weigh in? Like, does it make sense? We have so many opportunities to do more than just teach math, language, history, science, and literature. We have the ability to also teach our children how to be emotionally healthy. And sometimes we have to start with us. We have to realize, wait a minute, I'm feeling some triggering here. When my student isn't doing as well in a subject, it's triggering me. It's making me feel, ooh, what are people going to think? Again, somebody said not all of us are good at teaching. Yeah, I would say there are times, Chris and I would probably even say, we don't even enjoy homeschooling. We homeschool because the opportunities it gives us to be able to train our children in more than math, language, science, social studies, etc., etc. There are other times homeschooling is a ball, but just because it doesn't come natural to you, and well, Kristen, if she doesn't, I will apologize. But I think Kristen would say, yeah, I don't even enjoy teaching, and that's why she enjoyed writing a curriculum that took the burden of teaching and put it more in the textbook so that the student learned rather than her having to sit at the table and spend time teaching. And it doesn't mean everybody's that way. Some people really enjoy teaching the content. That's awesome. But that doesn't demean one or the other, right? We celebrate the diversity of intelligence. Diversity is this big word that we have now, but yet we're so prejudiced against some things, like intelligence and skills. And when we're looking at our students, sometimes it's motivation. It's hard to get motivated to do something you don't like. Think about, what do you have to do to motivate yourself to do the things you don't like? If you don't enjoy doing dishes or you don't enjoy doing laundry, but you know it has to be done, what do you do to motivate yourself, and apply that to your student? Begin growth hacking that to try to figure out how to motivate them to do the necessaries. But then really look at opportunities to do the fun and to learn. So we have to do school, but we get to learn. That was pretty good. We have to do school, but we get to learn. I need to write that down. And it's the learning part that we want to really push. And then the emotional health. I just can't say this enough. Narcissism is such a beast. And whether we're all at some level, we can all be narcissists, right? Human nature. But when it's not taken care of, and it's not, we don't teach our children to deal with their fragile egos at a young age. The older they get, the more it will cost them, and it will cost the people around them. So I would rather that my children have emotional intelligence first and then academic intelligence, because I've seen a lot of people who have academic intelligence with no emotional intelligence, and they've lost everything they've learned academically. That made sense. Hope so. All right. Hey, well, that's my tip. For the student that is struggling, celebrate the student that's advancing. Teach your student that's not doing so well how to celebrate that, and then look for ways that we can motivate and help that student, but also celebrating the successes of what they are good at. So, all right, good. Well, again, I hope this was helpful, and you take some. As I always say, eat the meat, spit out the bones. If something resonated, awesome. If it didn't, don't spend a lot of time worrying about it. Just push it away and move on. There are better things in life to do than to worry about an area that I messed up on. All right. Hey, guys, God bless you. And we appreciate your prayers with COVID, and we are praying for your families and protection of your families. Everybody's in it together. And we're grateful for you. So awesome. All right, guys, God bless. We'll talk to you later.